Hello, Java Challenger. I'm here with Elias Nogueira. Elias is a Java champion. He's a Oracle ace. He's a TDC rockstar. He was a TDC rockstar in 2017. If you don't know, TDC is the biggest conference in South America for developers. He has over 15 years of experience in the software development industry, and he is currently a senior principal software engineer at Backbase. It helps developers deliver high-quality projects through quality engineering practices as well. He's a Brazilian guy who moved to the Netherlands. So hello, Elias. Very happy to have you here. How are you?
Hi, Rafael. Thank you for inviting me. I'm doing great, and you?
Very good. Thank you so much for being here and accepting the invitation to be here. So, Elias, as I asked you all the Java experts I invite here, I would like to know, what is your career trajectory? What was your biggest challenges? And yeah, just tell me a brief story about your career trajectory. That would be awesome.
Cool. The biggest challenge for sure was Java, and I'll explain why. When I started computer science 2000, and I remember in 2004, 2 years later, I had one of the disciplines that was objective-oriented programming, and it was with Java. That was the first time I saw Java in my life, was Java 1.3. And a good thing that there would be the second discipline about the same topic, but more advanced. And it was Java again. So I could experiment a little bit more Java than other programming languages, more than C, more than others language that we had there. And the teacher at that time, she were really passionate about Java. And then we created a study group in the university to where the students could learn something about Java and teach others during the period with the facilitation of this professor. And it was really nice. The study group was there till 3 or 4 years later. That was super nice. And it was my first contact mainly with Java. And before other programming languages, you have everything that we see in university, right? Because it's super broad. And I really like it doing that and actually using the language. So I was searching as soon as I was almost finishing university for jobs like related to Java. But in that time, there were a lot of projects with Pascal or VB scripts or any other like programming language different from Java because it wasn't that much popular in the business point of view. But the difficult for me was actually learning in general. And in that time, I wasn't speaking English at all. And most of the content in Java was in English. And I remember the way I was studying most of the time was getting the books that I could have about Java. And I was getting a dictionary, an English dictionary as well. And I was trying to read, and I was okay. I don't know this word and this word and this word. I was trying to look at the dictionary. Then, okay, oh, understood. Now I need to jump into the code. Then I was trying to replicate it, even though I could not understand fully. But I was trying to replicate and see, okay, what is the output? So for me, it was a little bit more time consuming, let's say, because of the lack of English skills as well. But uh, this was basically my start and my biggest challenge, actually, not related directly to Java, but like that is super important thing. Now I can speak in English, and yeah, for people that don't have the English as primary language, I think in the area we are like in all the jobs, of course, but mainly in IT, it's a prerequisite, I think. And it took me some time, of course, but the big challenge was learning English while learning something that require you to having the English skills.
Very good. How was the strategy to learn English?
I was back in that days. I was in university, but I couldn't like I was working during the day, doing the classes at night. I was trying to study by myself at the beginning. And for example, every day that I was going to university, I was going there like after work, so I could spare more or less 1 hour till the class starts. So I was studying the library. And when I had more time available, and it was like barely when I was finishing the university, I could actually jump in the private school to learn a little bit more. So I started like having classes to improve that. And of course, that was one of the best things because I could like speed up all my learning in this.
Very good. So you mentioned about books. Do you remember what books you read at the time?
The data ones, Java How to Program, the head first, right? The
First, yeah.
series. Yeah, the head first. And I remember that we had like a lot of books in that time, like how to learn X programming language in 21 days. So there was one like called it How to Learn Java in 21 Days. Of course, it's a lie because you cannot learn Java in 21 days.
No
I think
way.
no, you cannot learn no programming language in 21 days. But those were my kind of three main books. And I remember the detail one was like a Bible, like was a lot of pages, like teaching you from the beginning, like fundamental things till like how can I deliver programs with the Java Swing, the user interface, right? And with servlets.
Very good. And how did you develop this passion for helping developers deliver high quality projects through quality engineering? Because I know you gave so many talks and you've been focused on that for so many years. And I'd like to know more about this passion, what drives you, to share your knowledge about that, and to empower software developers with those concepts.
Cool. The for sharing knowledge, I developed this passion during this study group from the university, where we need to learn first and then like share the experiences, and then as soon as you speak to the other colleagues, try to teach them about that subject. We had like a round of okay, let's discuss about it. So because we are learning together, not because I'm speaking like saying, hey, this is new, you can do like this, and that, because I like fully know about it. It's a learning process, of course. And that time I started developing this nice thing about public speaking, let's say. And I remember was my first talk was 2006 in the small meetups and user groups. So I thought, okay, this is nice because I'm speaking and they are learning something. That's nice. But I can learn something back as well in the event or through questions or through sharing experience after the talk or after the event. And I developed this passion like around that time. And about quality engineering, I was working as a backend developer, and then I joined a project. And back in that day, it was 2007, 2006, 2007. There was something new that the project were using. They were using extreme programming as a practice to develop software. And I felt really nice that, okay, the first thing you should take care in that process in XP is, okay, you need to create tests. And if you can, of course, you should create a test first and then create your code. So for me, it was okay, this doesn't make sense in that time. That time it was okay, but I can create code and then create tests. But this is also valid. But I started developing this curiosity about quality because I was feeling as well that if I'm not creating tests, at some point the software will break, what I'm doing will break, and I will spend more and more and more time trying to fix and understand that. And I could see easily through creating tests that cool, I'm seeing that my logic is not correct. And to be honest, that time I was not doing like TDD by the book. I think like most of the people don't do it by the book, but I was doing a mix of creating the test first and then the code, or sometimes creating the code and then the tests, and then continue this process. So I started developing some curiosity around like how I could test more, how I could deliver more, how I could actually prevent bugs and issues to the other like steps of the software development. And after a while, when I was working in a company as a developer, I've started taking care about all these things about testing. And like was basically a natural movement to become like, let's say, quality engineer with this focus on backend. And that was pretty much it. It started like with the learning, like how the practice about XP, mainly tests, and then how I could like still doing it in other layers and other parts.
Do you recommend the developers to do TDD by the book, or you think they should implement TDD in their own ways?
What I think nowadays, I have strong opinions about some kind of tests like the doing TDD or even doing integration tests. I can see benefits in all. If you do TDD, like test first and then code, or if you do code and then you apply a test, both are valid. What I prefer more, I prefer most of the time create a test first. But when there's some kind of complexity, of course, sometimes you're thinking about all the possible ways, you know the possible ways, you implement the code and then you do the test. To be honest, I prefer a little bit creating the test first, but most of the time I end up creating the code first and then the test. For me, it's a little bit easier because like I can see a piece of code and I can say, okay, cool. I already know a lot of quality. So I can just take a look in the code. I know all the tests that I should write. But when you're not that experienced or gain this experience, it's better to start from the test and then you write the code.
Awesome. And how do you see AI going with tests? Because nowadays you can simply select a method in Java and say, hey, AI, create all the unit tests I need. What are your thoughts about that? Do you think developers should embrace AI and say, hey, AI, create all my tests? I would like to know what are your thoughts regarding that.
I do like it, but everything with AI for software development nowadays, I have my restrictions as well. From my take, and I have discussion actually at work as well. They will enable, like next Monday, actually, they will enable Copilot to everyone to use, and they will accept everything developed by the AI. And I was telling them, hey, we should do a little bit more structure. I know that, like, for example, you, me, and other senior developers, we can see if AI is making a mistake, right? Or we can see, okay, they are lacking of some tests. Even though you like you write into the prompt all the things that it should do, AI can make some failures. More when it's the open AIs, like the open AI, DeepSeek, and everything. So they are not focused on the code, right? They are more generalist. Even though they are really good at writing code, they make mistakes. They don't add that much good coverage. And for you to have exactly what you want, you need to have that knowledge in how to write that. So I think that AI for development is super nice. Can speed up things for sure. Because like instead of spending 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes writing tests, I can like doing 5 if I know what I'm doing with AI. But I don't like it, to be honest, AI for junior developers, for example, because it's still like they can use, I want them to use, but I want like more senior engineers guiding them as well. Okay, use the AI, what you learning from it, how you think, do you think that is good, that is bad? Do you know that you can do different in this way? So yeah, I'm still think that it's super important when like some more junior engineers are using AI. We need to help them to understand a little bit more what they are getting from AI. My experience is that like they are getting better. So for example, nowadays for unit tests, I'm like AI, like writing the base code for me. And then I'm starting creating more on top of that. And sometimes what I'm doing small batches. I'm just get the code, hey, generate the unit test for me. Boom, generate the unit test. Cool, I like it, but you forgot to add this, and that technique. Sometimes the AI started to output you something weird, but like that's why I'm doing some steps because I need to know how to kind of calibrate it. But it's nice. I like it. It speeds up things. But my honest opinion is that we need to all the time double check instead of just trust fully copy and paste.
Oh, yeah, definitely. We need to basically do what you said, like use the code as a base, and then you increment, you do the refinements because AI also makes mistakes. And I think with time, AI will get also smarter.
Yeah,
So who knows? Like maybe 1 year, couple of years, it's like we're gonna need very little refinement in unit tests or even, I don't know, integration tests or whatever to test.
yeah.
So yeah, AI is extremely powerful and it's sometimes a bit scary.
Yeah, one thing that I do a lot with AI, I really do like to write my code instead of AI most of the time. And what I ask AI most of the time is, hey, I have this code I developed. What I'm missing here? Or which other pattern I could use? Or how we could improve this code? So I can learn a little bit like from some, instead of like, of course, I ask from my colleagues as well, but I can get this output from AI.
That's a great idea. AI is kind of a highly experienced consultant as you can ask for ideas. And that's amazing. Like you can simply ask, hey, I make my code better, or ask about what design pattern you could use. There are so many possibilities. Like it's so much power. So I know it depends on the project, but what tests do you think that are essential for high quality microservices?
Easy integration tests.
Integration tests.
I would say this we can of course debate, and people might have different opinion. But all the projects that I'm participating in microservices, we have way more integration tests than unit tests. And what is my main take on it? If I'm doing some algorithm that are kind of complex, that are decoupled, of course, all are decoupled, but more decoupled from the service itself, of course, I write a unit test for that. Or I ask the engineers to have a unit test for that. That's normal. But I would like, we can create a unit test mocking a lot of things, but at some point, you will get the context of the application, run it, and it needs to test for real if it's working or not with the endpoint, with something. So I believe that in terms of microservices, it's more beneficial in general to write integration tests. You could even indirectly test all the possibilities as well from units to integration. But of course, costs more, you write more code. I believe in this balance. But this balance for me, as I'm seeing nowadays in the projects that are working, there are more integration tests than unit tests. And it's nice because it's the way through integration tests, you really knows if your application is actually working or not.
Interesting. And what tool do you recommend for Java developers for integration tests?
I recommend not only for, I would say for integration tests, but a few set of tools we can use for make it better. So if you're using, it's basically like two main tools for that. If you're using Spring Boot Test, even though I don't like that much Spring Boot Test, but it's a nice tool. It's a nice library. It does the job. Quarkus, the rest test for Quarkus. And actually, Quarkus use behind the scenes a library that I love called Rest Assured. You see Rest Assured testing in Quarkus. And actually, in my projects, my pet projects, internal projects, I use Rest Assured on Spring. I remove the Spring test. Actually, I don't use Spring Boot test, and I use Rest Assured instead. Why is that? For me, it's a more powerful library. And actually, it's way easier to write code as well. You don't need to create REST templates and all those formalities from Spring. You just need an endpoint. You just do the get, post, all the HTTP methods in super straightforward way. All the tools does the job, of course, because they are meant to do that. But if I would choose one, I would use Rest Assured all the time with Java. And there are also like peripheral tools that will help you to make it better. Like, since the beginning, you have unit tests and integration tests. If you want to increase the coverage, learning a little bit more in a complex, let's say, classes and code, if you want, okay, what I'm missing here that maybe just the normal coverage won't tell me, PiTest, PiTest. So Java library that do mutation test in your code, and you can see some pitfalls that are hard to see like human eyes. It's a super nice one. I wouldn't recommend running this in a CI/CD pipeline because it costs a lot. It takes a lot of time for run. Like basically, we can run locally. We can see the coverage. Then we can start filling the gaps. And basically not 100%, sometimes 100% of coverage are kind of impossible. If you guys would like to see an example, I helped some Jakarta projects to have it. It's nice. So Jakarta Data is one of the projects that has it, and Jakarta NoSQL as well.
Nice.
Apart from it, I like ArchUnit as well, ArchUnit, because you can
Uh,
create that rules about architecture, and it's super nice because you can keep it up. And this I really like. What I like in my teams actually is that everyone can have a bare minimum set of process to follow. They and actually doing some things in the same way. For
mhm.
example, the project structure for me should be in the exact the same way all over now 18 teams I have. Why? Because when I jump in to help someone, I already know how to expect about the structure. I already know where to find this, and that class, the controllers, the implementations, and everything. If like in ArchUnit help us to like create this set of rules. If the rule is not followed, the test fail, so we need to just adjust. There's a lot of tools that I can share here, but like the PiTest and ArchUnits, like on top of Rest Assured, are the best ones.
What about test NG?
Yeah, this is the test engine. So the test engines, the three common ones we have in Java: Spock, JUnit, and TestNG, right? So it's the base libraries to create any kind of test. So on top of it, we put like any kind of library, like Spring Boot test already is using JUnit, but like I can use any of these tools to add like Rest Assured or any kind of additional library. What is my take? JUnit 5 nowadays is the best one to use for any Java developer. Super modern. Since JUnit 4, that we had JUnit 4 for many years. Then we had a group of awesome engineers that came together and okay, let's make it better now because JUnit 4 was like from years without that much new features, etc. We have JUnit 5. There's a lot of articles explaining this as well. One of the JetBrains blog posts. It's super nice.
Mhm.
But JUnit is the best one.
Okay.
It has all the features we need, data-driven, everything, assertions. And we do have spoken TestNG. Specific about TestNG, it does basically the same thing as JUnit. Feature-wise, they are basically the same. The
Mhm.
main difference for me when I use it, actually, I have this difference as well. I prefer using TestNG for test projects that required visual testing, let's say for mobile or for web. If I'm doing test automation for web, if I'm doing test automation for mobile, I use TestNG. I have something like that we do at work. We do have a separated test for API tests. We have two layers of API tests. We have the integration test, API integration test that is running as a service, doing a lot of tests. Perfect. And we have kind of ephemeral environments. So to really test a lot of microservices combined, which sometimes is impossible, I need like a QA environment or a pre-X environment. We do have as ephemeral environment. We can create basically an environment in 5 minutes with all the dependencies, with the database, with everything. And then we have a set of tests for that integrated environment. And the tool I'm using instead of JUnit is TestNG. Why? Because I can like run things easier in a parallel way. And the parallelism, a feature in TestNG, for me, it's way better than that we have in JUnit because in JUnit it's more for unit testing. So it does per class, isolating the threads, everything, but you don't have that much control. It's just one configuration that will be for the whole project. And with TestNG, I can like say exactly the class I want to have in the thread in that parallelism. So for me, these are the basic difference.
Mhm.
But like the first to go is JUnit all the time.
Awesome. So you mentioned that Rest Assured is more powerful. What are the main reasons why Rest Assured is more powerful than the others, in your opinion?
I would say it's more powerful because feature-wise, it has everything you need. Integration with everything of all the authentication methods you have on Rest Assured. you can really control what you're doing in the log part, a log point of view. So you can even like modify having your own way of logging. That's pretty cool. Rest assured, one thing that's common, we have an open API spec, right? When we develop the Microservice application, it should be this way. We have the open API spec. Through the open API spec, we generate the client code, and then we implement the client code, right? Based on the implementation, service controllers, etc. This is more or less the way of like bare minimum way of working for any microservices development. And for example, for this, most of people use OpenAPI tools to generate the client front for Spring, for Quarkus, for mobile, even like, and we can generate those clients. Rest Assured has as well a generator from OpenAPI tools, which is awesome. So you can get an OpenAPI spec and say, hey, generate a client based on Rest Assured because I want to test with Rest Assured this client. So instead of adding your test, that is super common. If you're not using the current tool you are using for that framework, for example, Spring, even in Spring, you need to place the full path of the request, right? So you ignore the beginning of your localhost of your application, but you need to add /API, /the version, /the path, and then all the other, the resource, sorry, and then all the paths or query parameters you need. It's normal for all the tools, but if you use Rest Assured, based on the API specs, everything will be there. You don't need to take care about this, any endpoints or this manipulation. Even the models that we have on the API spec, it is auto-generated, so you can use directly all the requests we have the correct payload with the Java classes, and I see a lot of benefits on it. And you can start modularizing more with Rest Assured instead of using Spring or any other tool.
Yeah, I actually like Rest Assured a lot. I remember I used Rest Assured before in one of my previous projects, and it's excellent because it's an invocation to a real endpoint, and you have like it's more decoupled to your endpoints than using Spring integration tests. So I think it's very good, does the job. It's simple enough, so it's great. So, but we have some challenges when doing integration tests, even more with microservices, right? Because, for example, when we have our microservice and our microservice is communicating to an internal microservice of ours, how is your approach? Do you mock those microservices or you run those microservices in the development environment, for example? How is your approach with internal microservices and external microservices, for example?
Okay, yeah. We have 3 approaches for that nowadays when I work, and I like all those 3. The first one we mock. It's a normal thing, right? And as I'm working a fintech, it's super hard to not mock because one microservice has at least one dependency.
Yeah.
For fintech is way more, but at least like one microservice, you have a dependency with something. So you mock. Super simple. Then you mock to the code using Mockito, any other tool you would like to use, mock MVC, etc. So after that, we have for some projects, and I really like this approach, we have the mocks through WireMock. But and I really love this approach because instead of mocking, because like you have one microservice that depends on X, but at that X microservice maybe is a dependence for 30 microservices, 100 microservices. So instead of everyone creating the same mock through code over and over again, what we do, we use WireMock. We map the request in response, we put in a container, and we deploy, or we just like open that container while we run tests. So we just hit that endpoint of the mock, and we know that we reply in the certain conditions. It's the same of mocking through code, but now I have basically a mock server that call it service virtualization running, and basically all the teams can be benefit of it, and you decrease the amount of code you are writing for those mocks. So we have the set of wire mocks, doing this. This is the second point. In the third point, actually, that we do just to speed up all the validations, all the testing part, we do have ephemeral environments where it's basically we have all the Docker containers, we orchestrate to Helm, so using Helm charts, and
Mhm.
it's basically we run a command on Kubernetes, we create a cluster, we orchestrate all the shards with all the Docker images, and then we have basically an environment up and running, and we run a set of tests with the real integrations as well. So we have like 3 steps. One, like the mock inside, like the unit test and integration test that is necessary. We are replacing a little bit, but we have this intermediate approach. We have service utilizations through WireMock, and we have the final approach or final solution, which is basically integrate an environment running the real dependence that like we have.
Awesome. So mostly use test containers to solve this problem.
Yeah, we use yes and no. We use test containers to run our tests, of course, integration test, and to run the WireMock locally. But we also deploy the WireMock in a server, but we can just hit an endpoint instead of open the context or starting that container all the time. And we use a lot of test containers to do like we need to support 3 different databases, and not only one. And what we do, we run all the integration tests in parallel per database that we support. We support 3: Oracle, MS SQL, and MySQL. When we run the integration tests, when we do merge into master, we run the same, all integration tests in 3 different containers in parallel, use test containers. So just make sure, okay, instead of running sequentially because it takes more time, and we need to guarantee that's working for everything's working for all those 3 databases, we just use test containers for that. It's awesome, super easy to do.
Awesome. How often do you run integration tests in your pipeline?
Every time, as soon as we open a PR, it runs.
Okay.
And
Very
it's
good.
necessary, and for me it's extremely necessary, even though you think that okay, it might take like 20 minutes. I have pipelines that takes 1 hour to run because you don't know the amount of tests we have. Like, it's insane, and we are trying to figure out a lot of different ways to speed up this. For example,
Wow.
I have one microservice. If I don't run things in parallel, if I run sequentially, it takes 6 hours because the
Oh
amount
my
of
God.
tests. Yeah, and if you do in parallel, we have 40 minutes, but
Wow,
it's
that's
still a lot
amazing.
of time, right? Yeah, it's amazing, but
Yeah.
it's still 40 minutes waiting for if your PR is reliable or not to merge. Takes a lot of time.
Yeah. And the thing is that every time you change the code, I assume you would have to wait the 40 minutes again.
Yeah. So what agreement we have among the developers is like everything you're doing locally before you run the pull request, you do locally. You check your ArchUnit tests, you check the coverage, you can run in parallel for the database, you can run everything locally. It's faster actually, yeah, because they have a good machines.
Hmm.
And then everything is fine, nothing is wrong. And if it would be wrong, you will see. So then we place the pull request. The developer will already know that, okay, everything is fine. Sometimes some developers even attach all the evidence that they run locally. Just say, hey, it will take 40 minutes, but I don't expect any issue because I run locally and here is the report. But like
Okay.
from me, because like I'm more focused on quality engineering, it should be on the PR level all the time.
Should be. Yeah.
Others, like let's say we have like some difference as well. So we already run everything on PR level. And what we do, the multi databases we don't run in PR level. We run only during the merge request to speed up things as well. ArchUnit tests we don't run in the PR level. We run in the PR level. We don't run. We run again in the merge request. So we are balancing some test executions, let's say, because if you run it again in same condition, it's just wasting a little bit of time.
Okay. What is your approach for end-to-end tests?
The approach we are doing nowadays is through ephemeral environments. So our development process. So we do everything like unit integration with this multi database, and we run some iterations. Our take is that like we developer software to our customers a new version once a month. Sometimes we develop patches because it's normal, so there's a bug fix to do. We need to deliver a patch, but like we do all the time. So and we use trunk-based development. So we run all the unit integration tests. Everything's fine. We merge to main. But before we merge to main, during this all the process, we do this. We have the branch opened. So we have quality engineers in the teams. So the developers, the backend developer, the front-end developer ask, hey, I have this PR, it's end-to-end. So can you run the end-to-end test? Or sometimes the developer runs this, but if it's jumping between one another task, they ask the quality engineer. The quality engineer, they don't merge that pull request yet. They get that pull request that has a Docker image for all that change. They deploy an ephemeral environment, integrated environment, and then they test that specific change within everything that is from master from the other dependencies. As soon as they run the test and they say, hey, everything is fine, we merge the pull request. So it's kind of a way, it's a little bit more manual, let's say, because we don't deliver directly in the main right away, but we have like simple checks through API or app tests to make sure, okay, the bare minimum, it's covered. What is the bare minimum? For example, one of the things I work is payments. The bare minimum is I can make payments. And it's not only one test, it's like thousands of tests to make sure the payment can be done. But actually, when we run a full regression test, we have like hundreds of thousands of tests almost to run. It takes a lot of time because this is the core of fintech. If I cannot make sure a payment can be made in all the conditions and all the possible configurations, I will lose money. My customers will lose money. Yeah. But like we do kind of when it's trunk-based development process. When you do it to the master, we merge to master, we run a set of smoke tests, the bare minimum accepted like tests for that to make sure that it's working. Yeah. And then before we can release a new version to a customer, we run a set of a lot of different tests. Normally it takes a few hours. It's basically pipelines. So you click on one pipeline will trigger like more 20, sometimes 30 test pipelines and running a lot of tests to make sure that's reliable enough.
So many tests. How many hours does it take?
Hours. It's in parallel. So the one that has more tests is payments. And this takes the feedback cycle is around 1 hour or 1 hour and a half for a full release.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Which is not bad.
Yeah, if you run all the business domains, the full application cycle, how many hours would that take?
For all the other services and everything?
Yeah.
We do independently this, but it would take like no more than 1 day, no more than a day.
Okay. Well, that's not bad at all. How often do you have errors on that? Because so many tests, so many things, so many changes in the code. It's so difficult to keep all tests passing, running.
We do have a really good engineering culture. So most of the issues I get, it's when we are trying to solve this. When I have integrations with other parties that wasn't well tested. So sometimes, let's say, again, payments again. So payment has integration with X service. And in the payment side, we tested that integration, for example, during all those things. But at some point, that service came as we are decoupled, right? We can like release wherever we want, anytime we want. That team can create some changes, but they don't need to do it, but like they don't need to retest something that we in this payments team we need to do. But they can make a change, they can run all the tests, their tests are passing, but when I consume that in using certain conditions in my service, it fails. So it's basically a little bit of communication and synchronization between teams when we have this few interdependencies. But those are the most problematic things that I get, issues. But like product-wise, if I focus on that only microservice, I don't get basically any issue. I get issues like during the development process, but we fix all in the development process before we release.
So your approach to do the full cycle test is probably to have your own independent microservices test and then have another test where you check external services as well. Because like you said, you don't have any control. If they make a change in the microservice, you have no idea unless you
Yeah.
test.
Yeah. So in my single microservice with the mocks and everything, I can have full control and know that everything is working. When I get the real integration microservice with my microservice, I need to do the same test or even more. Just make sure, okay, now in the real connection, they are working. Like simulating basically a production environment with this. And this is also good because you can get a lot of features. We are getting a lot of features on this, but it's beneficial because I'm getting issues before I'm releasing to the customer.
And what is your approach if you have an external issue? Like, let's suppose you need to deploy your system to production and there is an external issue and there's not much you can do other than talk to them. So
I know
what would
what we do. We do have a process. As soon as we have an issue, we do a first analysis and we see, okay, is my microservice or their microservices or any X microservice? Is my microservices or theirs? We have the same process. We open an issue for the responsible team, and then depending on the how critical it is, we set, of course, the deadline for that. And if it's super like critical, we set for 2 days actually the fix, and there's a time frame for that. But we open issues instead of talking to the team or talk to the developers. Why? This is a good thing for quality engineering that I love as well. But I know that not that much developers like to open issues, but opening the issues you have, even though it's super silly, it's really nice because after a while, you can plot that, how many issues you had, and you can try to understand the root cause. And then you see, okay, I'm doing this for my project. We have like, of course, it's normal. We will have issues during the development process. It's super fine. But instead of just say, hey, there's an issue here, can you take a look? If you just open a ticket with the normal information you must have to fix that or someone fix that, you can extract the information and say, hey, in the past 6 months, this microservice X had from the total of 15 open issues, 37 was in the same part of the code. So it's a good indication that, okay, this should have a refactor. And why is the same piece of code or like group of code that I'm having this issue? It's a good indication for like moving quality forward. Otherwise, you have a lot of issues. You are fighting with the issues. It's fine, but you don't know where to focus when you need to really fix something.
Yeah, I really like this approach because you document the issues and you're not lost with all the microservices and the complexity of the system. You have all the documentation, you know exactly where the problem occurred, you know where you should put work on, you know what team needs to make their microservices more reliable and more robust. So that's amazing. And it's rare, like in many companies, you don't have this level of control. Like
Yeah.
in many companies, like big companies mainly, there are so many external systems, so many people involved, like so much hierarchy that you don't even know how to talk with, and you usually you lose control of the whole application very easily. But by having this approach, I think it's very good. It's very good because you identify what is the root cause.
Exactly, yeah. And for example, when we are doing these cycles before we deliver the software to the customer, it's normal to find bugs as well. And we have this exact same approach. You find a bug during the cycle, you log the issue because, like you said, maybe it's a team in India that I don't have access, or it's a different time zone. They are not working now. So it's better to write an issue with the steps, adding the logs, explaining what you did. Then they can see, okay, cool. Yeah, I can even reproduce it. So yeah, it's cool. It's an issue. I will fix it. And yeah, it's the one of the best ways not like it's boring, of course, because it needs to okay, it needs to stop and write what I did to reproduce this issue. It's super boring, I know. And it takes sometimes like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes to write something, but it's beneficial because anytime that someone jumps in from the team or outside the team to help on that issue, the whole information is there. You don't need to get in the endless meeting explaining. It's there.
Oh, that's so rare. I don't see that very often in companies. What I see in companies is a badly written story, and they put just some quotes, some sentences, and they say, "Hey, there's something wrong with this screen. Figure it out."
Yeah. And I still have few people that does like this at the company. When I see those kind of issues, and hey, no, you need to write at least the bare minimum, otherwise I cannot even help you. Oh, but I can and the guys came to me and I can explain a super short meeting. No, you can explain to me. You explain for hundreds to 200 developers the issue? Oh, of course not. So write the issue so we know.
Yeah, I think that's very good. Like so many companies don't do that properly. So yeah, I think more and more companies should have organized process so that the job of everyone gets easier, right? Like even to the
Yeah,
tester, it's annoying. Like the tester write a story that's badly written. It's not clear what must be done there. Then what's gonna happen? The developer will reach out to that tester, and probably this tester could be busy doing something else, and then it takes a while, and then you have to schedule a meeting for the next day or for the next week. Then time
exactly.
is wasted, and it's just a stress, unnecessary stress for everyone. It's much better to take a little bit longer writing a decent story so that the developer has clarity of what must be done,
That's
like
perfect. Yeah.
other than like writing a very abstract story that like
Yeah.
it's impossible to figure out what's
What we
going on.
do, a tip I can give about this, that is the agile practice in general. That is a super nice approach that was created by QAs, actually, if I'm not mistaken. No, it wasn't QAs. But it's called Los Tres Amigos. It's like in Spanish,
Los
like
tres
the three
amigos, yes,
friends.
yes,
Los
yes. I
Tres
use
Amigos.
this
So yeah,
approach. It's
as soon
good.
as we have a story, we get like a QA, back-ender, front-ender, or any kind of developer sit together and okay, how we can test this or how we can develop like together, and what are the criterias that we need to create here to make it understandable for everyone and testable as well.
Yeah, yeah, that's so good. So what end-to-end test tool do you use?
The tools.
Yeah.
So for API, because we have API end-to-end tests, basically
Mhm.
what we do all the tests without the front end, thinking about that the user is using it.
Oh, okay.
With this, we can decrease a lot of tests in the front end specifically because it costs more, because it's slower, etc. So for this API end-to-end test, I use Rest Assured because for me it's the best tool for now. For web tests, we use Playwright. It's a nice tool. It's a really good tool, even though I prefer more Selenium because it's older, but it's really reliable. It's like, for me, it's the most reliable tool for web testing. And we do have native tests for Android and iOS. Android using Expresso, even end-to-end tests, and iOS using XUI tests.
Excellent. So you use Selenium kind of in an independent way?
No, yeah, we use Playwright instead of Selenium at
Playwright.
work.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, we're using the end-to-end way, yeah, to do all
So
that boring end-to-end front-end tests. Yeah.
so you use Playwright to tests since the front end to the back end, or only the front end?
No, we do have this kind of split. We do. Remember, we have like kind of, we can think about a fixed environment or a ephemeral environment, right? So we run the end-to-end test for API first, make sure everything on the API is reliable. Then after that, everything is fine. We run the web end-to-end test, which
Okay.
is much smaller than the API end-to-end. And basically what I do is sometimes there are some overlapping, of course, because I need to test the same feature in both just to make sure. But we do this to decrease the amount of time we are creating and running tests on the front end part.
Hmm.
And basically, technically, if you guarantee that your backend from a user perspective is tested based on all the conditions, the only issues you can get in the front end are the ones that the front enders can make a mistake through code, not through the API call. So you can reduce a lot this amount of testing.
Very good. What are your thoughts about like all of those tests we have with microservices? Because microservices, it ends up being a more complex infrastructure. So we need stress test, load test, and I think there are thousand more of tests that now we use. So what would be your approach to decide if you use load tests or stress tests or any other kind of tests that are available now with microservices?
It's extremely important, of course. We have like our approach. My current approach actually at work for performance test. It's done in two ways. One is the microservice itself. We do a performance test in the single microservice. Just make sure like we can like have the normal load and extrapolate the load and see if the extrapolation it's based on the conditions and results we do expect in a single microservice. And then we have the end-to-end as well. Because we depend on other microservices, we do a set of end-to-end performance tests as well on this. We were using Scala, Gatling, like with Scala for that. Now we are using K6. But I still prefer Gatling because for me it's kind of a better tool in general.
Yeah, Gatling, I remember already used in one of my previous projects. What about JMeter?
JMeter is nice, but one thing that I love is creating everything task related or any kind of task through code. And in JMeter is basically a user interface that you need to fill in, you record, but needs to do a lot of things. And Gatling and any other one is code, pure code. So it's I would say that it's even easier for any developer to create like performance tests or any kind of test through code instead of through a user interface.
Very good. And Elias, how was your journey to become a Java champion?
All right, so my journey. I think I became a Java champion. I think the Java champions proved me to be part of this group mainly because the knowledge I'm sharing about Java and mainly testing
Hmm.
since the beginning of my career.
Hmm.
And so if I look back, I'm public speaking since 2006, so 19 years, right?
It's a long time.
And yeah, and I'm doing things with open source project as well, but like mostly I think with the public speaking, try to advocate in favor of Java, of course, which is my niche, and specifically in testing as well, because like we have a lot of really good people doing a lot of good things,
Mhm.
and I think I through the expertise I have, what I do professionally, I also can do freely, right, for free.
Yeah.
And one of the main like yeah things that why I still do this back in the days when I was in university and like was doing all the things, I did have basically money to go to the conferences because yeah, when you are a teenager or like just like doing university, yeah, you don't have you basically don't have money, right? You are
Yeah.
doing a lot of things, and I could learn a lot from free meetups and events that we had, and I was doing this a lot in Brazil. before I move it. So I even created some meetups, and I believe it's the first and long-running meetup about testing in Brazil. It is still running nowadays. That's nice. We created
Nice.
in 2008. And I think I became Java champion mainly because of like sharing knowledge freely to everyone, to try to like create this, okay, like Java is nice, and Java with testing is nicer, so you can like have a lot of benefits with it. And of course I contributed to some open source projects, which is nice as well. So, and mainly was not because of it, but like it's nice to contribute to open source projects, make them better. And I was trying to use all my knowledge on testing to make all different open source projects better as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I feel that one of the biggest keys to become a Java champion is knowledge sharing and also the impact you create to the community. So in your case, you gave so many talks and you made so many amazing contributions to the Java community that it happened, right? You become a champion before and then you just get the title.
Yeah, and if I look like it, if I would say, oh, we know about, I don't know if the guys who are seeing this video knows, but like it's basically the difference of Java Champion to all the other programs, because the other programs are like you do share knowledge, etc. But it's basically like you should keep it up some points. You need to do things on the time frame, and it's fine, of course. But all the Java champions that I know, you and all the other ones, we do basically by passion, right? Because we love to do that. We love, like, we don't want a title to do that. Basically, it was like we are doing this for longer and longer. Then we were recognized for the work we are doing. It's not something like you apply, and I didn't apply it for that. I don't go there, hey, I want to be a Java champion, I want to apply. No, it's basically it's the opposite, right? And these people, that's a different. These people see that, okay, this person is contributing to Java community, and the contributions are super nice. A lot of people are learning and get benefits from that. So you become kind of this evangelist.
Yes, it's basically based on the impact you make to the Java community. So I think that's the biggest key to become a Java champion. And if you are recognized by other Java champions, then eventually you're going to be nominated to become a Java champion. So
Yeah,
it's amazing. It's a very high honor from the
exactly.
community.
Yeah,
So I'm very, very grateful for that.
me too.
So, and how was your move from Brazil to the Netherlands as a developer?
Oh yeah, at some point in Brazil, I was thinking about to move to basically any other country, because I would like to have this experience of living abroad and having different, even professional opportunities, right? Not to earn more money, of course, it's important, but to expand my knowledge in having different kind of projects. Because, for example, a financial institution in Netherlands, it's like has the same features, basically the same way as a financial institution in Brazil, where I'm from, but they are totally different as well in terms of like how you develop rules, everything. So I was trying to find a job abroad, and I was targeting mainly United States, because for a Brazilian perspective, it's easier for us, like targeting to US market, because we are close to that culture as well. I was doing some interviews. I was doing a lot of interviews actually. And at some point, like you mentioned, we have the biggest Latin American event in Brazil, which is
TDC?
the Development Conference, TDC. And there was a TDC in Florianopolis, where there was booths from a lot of different companies from all different countries actually try to hiring like people. It's normal because we know that a lot of booths, they have the booths there, but they they try to hire you as well. But like
Yeah.
majority are Brazilian companies, And in that conference specifically, there were specifically booths from Netherlands that are now. I remember that was from Canada as well. And I think United States. It was 2018. And then I was going to the booths to talk to people, to talk a little bit more in English because I wasn't working in international projects. So it's nice also to practice a little bit. And I remember, like, don't judge me what I'm about to say, because I was seeing the job offers from Canada was really awesome, but I was thinking, okay, it's snowing for like 9 months. I like I don't want to move to a country that's 9 months of like snow and everything. And like compared to Brazil, we basically like the temperature is perfect, it's amazing. And but I was when I went to this booth from the Netherlands, there were actually two people from the Netherlands and two from Brazil. And I was talking to them, and then at some point we were talking Portuguese because it's normal when you saw a Brazilian, and if for any language you start to speak in your own language. And I
Yeah.
was asking them, it was really funny. Okay, I really like the company. I was telling them it's nice, but tell me one thing. I know nothing about Netherlands. So tell me what is bad about Netherlands. Tell me all the problems. And they say, from the perspective we have in Brazil, there is no problem at all. And then, no, come on, it should be a problem. They say, no, there's basically no problem. So it's a first world country. So of course there are problems that you see later, but it it's not a problem. So it's basically discussions and things. And I was like, I was not getting it. So like, no, you guys need to tell me something. So the guys told me, okay, yeah, the weather is different from Brazil, of course, because it's more up north. So that's a little bit colder. And the food, of course, is not that good compared to the cuisine we have in Brazil, because it's amazing. For me, it's the best. And they said, those two things. And I was telling, okay, what about security? Security is awesome. It's perfect. There is basically no incident. Okay. And what about this, and that? And they're saying, no, there's no problem on those things. And I said, okay, how I can have an interview? And before the guy started explaining to me, he just shifted to some kind of things that I do at work. And we were basically exchanging knowledge and technically. When we finished, the guy said, you already approved in the first one. So we were talking about technical things you not even noticed. But yeah, I just finished the first interview. So if you would like to continue, you have the technical assignment and everything. So yeah, let's try it, right? Why not? And I remember 2 weeks after I had this conversation in the event, I received the technical assignment. I did in 1 week. I did the best I could. And it was weird because most of the companies I was applying, it was whiteboard. And in some, I did as well interviews for big techs. And some big techs were basically whiteboard with a lot of meetings in between. I did one a big tech what was a whole day in that big tech, like in person with the same style. But this one, I said, no, we do everything offline, of course, because like Brazil to Netherlands, we won't fly you in. I did a technical assignment. I delivered. 1 week later, I had just a short interview to discuss about the technical assignments. And then a few days later, I had an offer, like super fast. And I said, yeah, why not? So I talked to my wife and said, hey, seems a good proposal. What do you think? She said, like, let's go. Yeah, we have nothing to lose, right? So if we move, we start living there and working. If we don't like, we come back to our countries. It's fine. Simple like that, I think. So it was the way I arrived in the Netherlands by, let's say, by accident, not focusing on the market. And one of the things that made me move to the Netherlands as well is because they are awesome English speakers. It's basically like they speak Dutch here, but like anyone can speak like perfect English because they have an education in English since they are kids. So that's why. And it's a problem as well because I'm trying to learn the language, but it's difficult because they want to speak in English as well because they like to speak in English. But yeah, it was more or less my process, my path to come to the Netherlands by accident, let's say. but it was a really nice one.
Very good. And how is the market for Java developers in the Netherlands?
Really good. We do have a lot of different developers here. The market, as far as I can see, is basically divided in 4 groups, let's say, in languages. There's a lot of PHP developers here. I believe all of the world, but like it's still nice to see PHP. They are really, a lot of companies really are tied with Microsoft. So you see a lot of C Sharp. You see, of course, it's normal everywhere, but you see a lot of TypeScript and Node because like a lot of startups and companies like this. But you see like majority, as I can see, Java. Like all big company, like medium sized to big companies here, basically Java.
Very good. Awesome. And well, you said that there isn't any cons in the Netherlands, but what are the pros and cons in the Netherlands in your perspective?
Pros and cons. Cons first.
Okay, so there is cons.
No, but the cons, like there are not cons, but
Okay.
depending on the person, like
Yeah.
here from Brazilian perspective, here is cold. Like now
Cold.
it's 4 degrees.
4
I
degrees.
know
Okay.
that maybe if someone is seeing this video from Norway, they say, hey, 4 degrees? So no, 4 degrees, I'm going to the beach. Like, no. No, but like it's, for me, somehow cold, but you get used to it. So it's a normal thing. The second problem for me is food, in terms of not food, because they have food, of course, but like in terms of like the cuisine here, like it's a joke, but it's not a joke. Have you seen any Dutch restaurant in any place in around the world?
No.
So this is how you can see that if the food is good or not. I'm not saying the food is bad, but like based on that, there is no Dutch restaurants in all over the place. But basically, so you can say, okay, food, we have food here, but it's not like something super enjoyable. This is my personal take.
Same situation as Ireland, because you never see an Irish restaurant as well.
Yeah, but you have like beef stew is nice. You have the pies.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
so
It's
that's
better.
it.
It's better compared to
And
here.
Guinness.
Yeah, and if you add a Guinness, like everything is perfect. Yeah, and
Okay, so those are the only cons.
yeah, and you might find a con in the language, but it's normal, right? Because even though everyone speaks English like really nice and really perfect way, all the main things here are in Dutch, of course. In few things are in English. If you get a train, they will speak in Dutch and then in English. This happens. Other than that, like menus and everything, that's kind of common with and expected. Everything will be in the Dutch language. All the letters you receive from the government, even though they know you are an expat, you are from abroad, it is in their language. And for me, it's kind of difficult to learn the language because it's a totally different language, actually, for what you're used to. But I wouldn't say that it's a con, but it's just something you need to, okay, yeah, it's a different language. I need to at least learning a little bit to understand a few things. What is good here? From a Brazilian perspective, or Latin American perspective, or third world country perspective, security.
Security. Yeah.
Like for me, here is like perfect. And I had a situation, my wife had situations that she forgot the purse or cell phone in the train. If you call then and go to the lost and found, it's there.
Nice.
Because the culture they have, like if they see something like, if you forgot your cell phone, it's like in a, I don't know, in a bar. No one will touch the cell phone, or if they will touch, they will get the cell phone, get to the waiters, hey, someone lost his phone, just like take care of this because the person will come back. And they are super honest in this way. So it's really nice because they're super honest. There's no basically violence or anything like this here. If there's, of course, that existing incidents, but when some incident happens, like it's basically like few minutes, there's a full task police force trying to figure that out. That's super nice. So you feel really secure. One of the things I like it because sometimes I go to Amsterdam, go to some bar, I drink a lot, I'm walking to the street at 3 a.m., nothing will happen. Nothing.
Nice.
Even for the girls, because I know that the girls is a little bit more troubled, right? Because they fear a lot. You see a lot of girls walking after midnight and no one does anything because it's the normal thing to do, right? So everyone respects everyone. It's super nice here. They have like, maybe it's a con. They have super high taxes here, but you can see that the taxes are applied somewhere in security, in an organization, in the streets, and everything. You can see that like you're paying, but you receive something back. You can see they are doing something good with your money that you pay to the government. What else? It's a beautiful country, super beautiful country.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of super nice things to do, and it's basically a hub as well. Because Netherlands, if you need to travel around Europe, basically you like if you go, let's see, the one of the farthest countries you can go. For example, you cannot go to Ukraine. You can go, but it's a little bit dangerous. It's beautiful. Have been there. If I'm not mistaken, it's 2 hours flight, 2 hours and a half flight. If I need to go to France, it's like 1 hour and a half. So if I need to go, basically like Netherlands is almost in the not in the middle, but like it's a super hub because there's the one of the biggest airports. Can get a flight and it's not expensive. A lot of places you can go by train. I can get a train like in 5 minutes from my house, and I can go to Belgium in like 1 hour, 1 hour
Nice.
something. So
Sounds
that's
good.
a good thing as well because you can travel a lot and you can know a lot of different countries as well around it. Pretty much it. There's a lot of other pros, but yeah, it's basically those.
And do you need to learn Dutch? How is this process? Do you need to learn Dutch in order to acquire the citizenship?
Yeah, one thing that I didn't mention, when you move to the Netherlands as an expat, if you move as a high-skilled immigrant, you get a lot of benefits from the government. The main one, the two main ones, you get 30% discount in the taxes. They are
Excellent.
changing a little bit, like the amount of time you can get it, but I had for 5 years, for example. In 5 years, I was paying less tax because of that. And I can exchange my driver license, for example. I don't need to apply for a new driver license here, which is expensive. But the high skilled immigrants, it's if you guys don't know, is basically the positions the country have or has that cannot be filled by the locals because there's no supply for that. All the locals are working that, but there's high demand in that position, so they need to get from abroad to fill all the positions. In Netherlands, all the time, basically the high demand is in IT and in MD and medical as well. So they hire a lot of doctors and things like this. They go directly to the high skilled immigrant.
Mhm. No, that sounds
And in order to get the citizenship, there's a two difference here. You can get after you are living 5 years, and if you speak Dutch in a certain level. For me, that I here for basically 6 years, for me it's the A2 level only. But they changed this rule recently. Now it's the B1, if I'm not mistaken, or B2. But like, believe me, A2 is really hard. It's really hard here because of the language. And you need to apply, you need to do some tests. Like what is the name of the English test we do?
TOEFL.
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 Yeah, TOEFL. Yeah. You do basically, it's kind of TOEFL, but from the government, you need to do this test. And if you pass, you can choose between two things. And of course, you can like go to one to another. You can get a fixed working visa because my working visa needs to renew after every 5 years. And if you have a fixed one, you don't need to renew it, and you can work like whatever you want and wherever with anything. Or you can have the passport, or you can become citizen, a Dutch citizen, and then you can have the passport. And to have the passport, of course, you have the working permit forever as well because you are
Mhm.
national. But they have a rule here. If you become a Dutch citizen from abroad, you need to give up of your previous nationality. You cannot not have double nationalities here.
Very good. And in your opinion, I know this also varies from company to company. It also varies from different experiences. But what is a senior Java developer in your opinion?
Senior Java developer. It's tricky. I still believe that it's somehow related to how many years you work, because in terms of how many years you work, you get more experience on it. But I know that sometimes there are people like working 5 years, 7 years but we cannot unfortunately consider seniors. But for
Yeah.
me, the main thing about seniority for a Java, the two things. One is do the tasks they should do. For example, I need to develop a new endpoint or something for a new endpoint for a microservice, right? Or a new microservice. For me, a senior Java developer should be able to develop that with tests, like with good quality on that, and delivering less and less defects on that. So this person won't rely on, okay, I don't know how to do it, so please help me to do this. Super fine if you ask this, but a more senior engineer knows how to do it, and maybe or will ask questions about how he could improve that instead of how he could do that. Basically, is the difference. What I see the difference, like actually for a medium to a medium is still like learning and asking, okay, how I can do this because I'm learning. I don't know. Cool, that's perfectly fine. It's awesome actually, and we are helping these people. But a senior for me is like, okay, I can do this, and I will ask other my colleagues to, okay, how I can improve what I did that is working, that has a good coverage, all the tests, all the things. But it's two things. Like one is technically this, but there's also soft skills,
Yeah.
right? Which are super important because I know like it's normal. It happens to me as well because when we are technical guys, we need to just write code. We don't like even to talk to other people, right? Like maximum send some Slack message and that's it. No interactions, no human interactions. But this is one of the second main thing about like being a senior developer. You
Yeah.
really need to interact with people. You really need to have soft skills of how to explain something to others, mainly to non-technical people. If I explain something to you, Rafael, about like microservices, or I'm using Quarkus on this, and that, I'm starting really deep dive technically, you understand. But I cannot do this for my PO or to my director, maybe. So the ability to explain things, technical things, for people that are not technical, it's a must for senior developers. And for me, the ability as well of you have a technical solution, and it's normal among us. When we have a technical solution, we think that is the best technical solution ever. It could be the best technical solution ever, and you need to convince people that it's good. You need to have the soft skills about how to communicate that. Not say, hey, this is the best approach ever. No, this is one approach. And for example, what I do nowadays, I do a POCs. I show, hey, this is one approach that I think it's pretty nice, but I'm open to all the questions and all the improvements and everything that you guys see that's maybe it's not good enough on this. And like somehow like get more on the ground, let's say, to not think that you know everything and everything that you do is the best way, but like being open to receive some inquiries, questions, and even like things like, hey, this is actually wrong. So I think you did wrong, but yeah, they will say in a nice way and they will help you on that. It's not only being a super good technical person, but also like know how to communicate.
Know how to communicate and know how to deal with other people. Because
Yeah.
it's not only to say, oh, you're wrong. You need
Yeah,
to,
expectations. Yeah.
yeah, you need to have a good way to communicate that. You can't point fingers, otherwise you would, create necessary conflicts. in our team. So it's better to improve this way to communicate, improve communication skills. So how do you recommend senior software developers to improve their communication skills?
There are a lot of, I will show one to you. So in some ways, you see a lot of management stuff because managers master this way of communication, right? Because one of their primary jobs. And
Some
we
of
need
them,
to learn
not all of
some
them,
of them.
but
Yeah,
yeah.
let's say some of them. Yeah, I'm being nice.
Yeah.
We need to learn from them. Articles are super nice, and I like books. And recently, I'm reading this book, Radical Candor.
Oh, interesting. Never heard of this book.
It's nice because it's basically for managers, but anyone, I think, like IT should read this because you can understand all the struggles that manager have. And it's in this book they explain the way of communication, how much important is the way of communicating things. And basically, like, when we need to grow in your career, like for example senior to after senior, relationships matters as well. So, and sometimes, for example, you make some concessions, and for my position is normal. So, for example, I envision a way to do something, but I cannot do exactly like that the way I want. So I need to negotiate with people to do small steps, or to maybe do later, or maybe not do it, and we see the results. So the way we can communicate and have all those things are like should be important. I recommend this book, but like I would recommend going to anything that can just like that is I don't remember the full name of the book, but it's kind of non-violent communication, which is really
Oh,
important as well.
very good. It's very good. I already read this book. Yeah.
And there's one thing I do as well with my engineers, at least seniors or mediors, whatever the when I'm like the new seniors, let's say, everything that we need to do as improvements and everything, I have a process like, hey, cool, you want to improve this, right? Yeah, nice, and I like it. So I understood, but maybe you need to explain this for more like 3, 4, 10 people. So instead of explaining, create a document or a conference page or anything, just add a context why you want to do that, what are the benefits of that, and then you can put anything technically if you want. But when I ask them, okay, what are the benefits, and you should explain in the way that everyone can understand, a lot of people that are not used to it, like, hey, I don't know how to do. And this is a good way of communication as well, because when you are selling something, a technical solution, something like this as seniors, we need to tell in a way that's not only for technical people. And when you are starting explain the benefits of that you want to do, you start thinking again like, hey, maybe it's not that beneficial, so I shouldn't do that. Or maybe I'm not seeing all the benefits and I need to work a little bit more in what I'm trying to propose. So I do a lot of this with the engineers I work with.
Awesome. Very good. And in your perspective, what is the importance of having a mentor?
Extremely important. It's a must. It's kind of like having someone like a therapist, right? In the modern life nowadays, accidentally. Yeah. So why a mentor is good, technically or not technically, because it can show you things that are not seen. It's normal thing, right? But normally, my experience with mentor, of course, is normal. They won't say you the answer, but they will guide you to the what is the they will guide you through the answer, or they will help you to try to understand what would be the answer. And then you can get in different aspects. Can be even technically, or it can be like non-technically related, right? And for me, like everyone must have a mentor. And the way I take, like, let's say technically, what I like to do, I'm a principal engineer. So let's say if I put like having this grade before a principal engineer is a senior. So I have me and other principal engineers mentoring, helping, coaching, seniors. And I want the seniors doing the same for mid-years. And I need the same from the mid-years to juniors. But Elias, mid-year to junior doesn't make sense. Makes a lot of sense. Everyone is learning. Everyone is stepping, like it's learning new things, stepping ahead. So we can have this sense of help each other all the time. And this, like at this where I work, it's of course the same thing. My director is my mentor. So I'm mentoring a group of people as well. So it's perfect. Not only technical is important, but not only technical as well.
I really like this approach because everyone is mentoring like the less experienced ones, and I think that's a very effective way so everyone grow. And as a consequence, you're going to deliver higher quality product. People will be more motivated because they are growing, and I think that's perfect. That's amazing. That's an amazing culture, and I don't think many companies have that. Only so I see that happening most of the companies kind of in an informal way. So it's not in the job description of a senior developer that he or she should mentor the intermediate developer.
Yeah. Informally,
So,
yes. Yeah.
so they are kind of doing a favor. It's not their responsibility. So yeah, but I really like this approach to really having their roles. Like it's good for you to mentor less experienced developers because every time you teach something to someone else, you're also learning.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a growth experience for both. And the more we grow as developers, the more soft skills become more important.
Yeah.
So talking about soft skills, other than communication, what should a senior software developer learn?
If I would see communication, I would stop at that. But you can get the way of communication in different ways, right? So negotiation, listening as well. They should listen more than we give solutions. For example,
Yeah.
nowadays I'm super opinionated in everything. At work, like I need to get my ideas in all the time. But nowadays, what I'm doing, I'm listening a lot. Then everything I started asking questions instead of like say, hey, no, this is not won't work. I would prefer doing this and that. I'm asking questions a little bit more about the context because like a lot of people from my side, they lose the context. And it's most important starting by the context, but ask the context, why that is necessary, tell me more about, tell me more the benefits. But listen what they have to say to you. It's the first thing we should do. Instead of, okay, yeah, I read the document and I think no. Wait, let them explain to you what the ideas are, even though it's written some document or email, it's like wherever. Then you think about it a little bit and then you start a discussion. But more discussion in okay, asking why they came up with that solution, why what they think it's best or would be beneficial, instead of you saying, no, this is shit or this is not gonna work or this could be improvement. Listen a lot from them and then starting like debating about it. Yeah, negotiation. I already said it before. How to negotiate things with people as well, because we envision something to do, and sometimes this is the best approach, but for some circumstance cannot be applied, or cannot be applied in the way we are envisioning it. So how to negotiate things are super important.
What is your approach to improve negotiation skills? Because this is a particular skill that we use all the time, basically, right? We use negotiation skills when we are agreeing something with someone, even in our day-to-day lives. Doesn't need to be professionally. We negotiate, we're going to buy something, or when we are going to make a big purchase, like property purchase, or when we're going to purchase a car. Like there are many times in life where we use this very important and crucial skill, which is negotiation. This is something that is never taught in classes, never taught in college. no, like it's difficult to have something specifically focused on negotiation. So what is your approach to negotiate better? Or what should a senior software developer do to improve their negotiation skills?
For me, there are two things, basic things for negotiation. One is never be shy, because normally we don't like to negotiate because we would start a conversation that we might kind of have sense of lose that, but it's normal. We should ask what we want to ask, then listen to that what they are saying, and then starting. Okay, but I think this is not why why we should do it this way, why is not this way. So actually asking a lot of questions and don't be shy in asking those. And the second thing is being honest all the time. Like, because unfortunately people are different, and sometimes they have like kind of hide agendas, or they are hiding exactly the meaning why they are doing that. I don't like it, but it happens as well. But the first thing is don't be shy, and that the only way we can get into this skill or improve the skill of negotiation is basically, okay, we need to negotiate. You need to ask, prove your point, and then ask, okay, do you agree with my point? It's basically this. But I know that like as developers, we don't like to talk that much, and we don't like to listen to the others when they want to say. And most of the time, when they are right, because we do have some ego sometimes that, okay, now he's proving the point, he's right. I I should have never asked this. So, but it's totally opposite.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I know that ego is a serious thing in our area, software developers, and that's a big challenge because sometimes we need to know how to handle other developers' ego, and like you have to listen more, and it's this something very complex, very difficult, and like you have to be very tactful when you notice that you are talking to a developer who has strong ego.
Yeah,
So, and try to focus in the main solution, not,
exactly.
like
Yeah,
it's not important to be right because like there will be times you want to be right and that's okay. The most important thing is to focus on the best solution to the project.
exactly. Yeah.
So,
When I try to show something like in a negotiating, like technical solutions or anything that I would like to do, my approach is, of course, I have the full overview and everything. But when I start negotiating, I have like all the plans B, C, D, E, and normally I like to do things in milestones as well. So let's say I have something to do, and something like will take some time. They say, hey, this time so for example, in 1 week I can do this, negotiating an initiative or change or anything. And maybe your director or someone say, hey, no, but we don't have this time, we need to wait for more X days because there is a sprint, there is a delivery, there is something that is in between. What normally I offer, cool, but we can do this in 2 days and get some feedback. And if you see that is beneficial, then we can talk again and see if you have this time. Just I try to do few things when I'm negotiating small steps, offering small steps, just to try to convince myself and them that we will have a good result. Sometimes I'm wrong. Sometimes I offer a super small step. We do that. We get the results and see, okay, the results are not good. So cool, we won't do this. It's fine as well. So I really like to do things small steps.
yeah, I think that's a very good approach. And what are the technologies a backend Java developer should focus on to be in high demand in the market?
Technologies. I would say everything that's kind of hype, but we need to be really conscious about it. What is the hype, right? So nowadays it's still like not kind of hype, but like unfortunately, we need to learn about Kubernetes, right? As a Java developer, you develop microservice, that's fine. But okay, we need to deploy it. We need to test it somewhere. You need to know, you don't need to be a DevOps engineer and know a lot about infrastructure, but you need to know the bare minimum of it. Everything that is surrounding your job, in all the terms, you need to learn a little bit. So things that a Java developer should know: a little bit of infrastructure nowadays, non-functionals, like performance that we discussed, or any kind of non-functionals. For me, a Java developer, mainly a senior one, should be able to do system design. For example, we will have a new application, how we can design the whole application. Of course, we have architects for it, we have like principal engineers and whatever, but we need to learn this. If we need to progress in our careers for a post-senior, of course, we should learn that. But it's a nice thing to do as a Java developer as well, learning everything that is in the big context. And any technology that is coming, what I like to do is like, when is a new technology, I'm starting following, not doing anything, just following. And then if I can see that it's mature or going somewhere, then I try to experiment. For me, it's basically this.
Yeah. I think it's so important what you said about learning the technologies that surrounds Java. Like, doesn't mean that you have to be an expert in Kubernetes or, I don't know, maybe all the AWS services, Jenkins jobs. You don't need to know everything about those surrounding technologies, but you need to know the basics, at least to solve the main problems.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and this is something particularly difficult because most Java developers were used to learning Java, framework, and that was it. Database.
Yes.
But now with microservices, there's a lot more.
And I can give an example and a super nice explanation of it. It's a common saying in the Java community in general that Java is slow, right? And sometimes we deploy to Kubernetes and it's slow. But the first thing to do is basically open more pods, create more pods, do more, right? So you can put more resource on that pod, so it will perform it. Sometimes it's lack of some skills or approach we are doing performance test, but sometimes just basic knowledge that we should have around that, not specifically about Kubernetes, but for example, about the GC.
Yeah.
And I remember that I learned a lot from Bruno Borges, another fellow Brazilian, but he is a product manager for Java in Microsoft. He has a talk about explaining exactly this. Sometimes we don't need to just when some companies are saying, okay, we have a microservice in Java, it's not performing well, let's replace it by Go or by Rust or by any other new language that seems more performatic. But I remember his talk, he's like, okay, you need to learn the basics. You need to learn a little bit of infrastructure, but you need to learn about fine-tuning the JVM as well. And it will help you actually sometimes even better than replacing it to another language. So those things we get from time, and we learn from others, of course. But it's one of the examples like, okay, we need to learn, expand a little bit, not fully focus on what we do, but it's nice, like microservices, for example, but we need to learn these surrounding areas.
Amazing. What books or courses would you recommend for experienced Java developers to deliver high quality projects?
I will say 2 books.
Yep.
One, there's a main one that will be the last, but 2 books. One new one that they just released. If you would like to see Quarkus, you're Quarkus developer, there's a new Quarkus book, Quarkus in Action, that I saw in the first hand before they release it, but which is super nice. And I really like it because it's, of course, it's teaching you Quarkus, but it's teaching you testing as well. That's uncommon. Yeah, that's uncommon. But of course, going to the direction of testing, there is one book, Effective Software Testing. This book is amazing. Is the best one that we have out there. Why? we have a lot of books about testing written by testers for testers, right? In this effective software testing, we have a quality engineer, a QA that's wrote that, but he's also like an engineer in general, not that only a QA. And he could write this book in the way like things like unit tests, why we have unit tests, why is this, what the way you should do, what is integration test, what is the testing techniques, everything based on the backend perspective and the backend developer engineer perspective. And you see that, okay, cool, I'm doing like, I don't know, unit tests or integration tests, but I'm missing those aspects. It's a must. This book is the best testing book that we have now.
Amazing. I will leave the link in the description of this video because, yeah, from what you told me, it must be an amazing book.
No, it is.
Amazing. So what is the golden career lesson you can share with the Java challengers audience so they can be at the top of their game as a developer?
I would say you won't be surprised, but I would say deliver things with quality.
Nice.
Why? I do have an experience, a super nice one, and I'll tell you a super short story about it. I was still working in Brazil, living in Brazil, and at the time I was a consultant, and I was in a project for media in the south of Brazil, and I was helping the developers to increase a little bit more quality. And one of the lead developers there, he really wanted to like increase the quality. Basically, they were doing all the things basically without testing, and I was explaining like this with small steps how they could get benefit of it. Then the project was done, etc. I was in different projects, and at a certain point, I was getting a flight from São Paulo to Porto Alegre, so two different cities, like 1 hour and a half flight. And I found this guy in the plane, and hey, can I sit next to you? Let's talk. Yeah. And what the guy told me, hey, I was here in São Paulo. He wasn't from the other city, because I was getting my papers to move to Germany, to Berlin, because I did a job interview there. And actually, they told me the following: your technical solution is not the best one we have here, but it's the only one that has tests. And we prefer someone that doesn't have the best technical solution ever and have tests and know the importance of it than someone that's really good technical and can solve everything without tests. And he got the job because of that. And what I would say, technically, of course, we will do everything and we get better on it, but we really need to focus on do that technically with high quality. And there is no way we do with high quality without testing it. I know sometimes it's boring, it's more time consuming. Sometimes it seems not working, it will fail a lot, but there's a lot of benefits you see in the way. So for me, it's of course, because of focus on quality, I'm saying this, but for me, it was also game changer. It changed my life actually when I started learning XP with TDD, with all the quality stuff. Okay, hey, this is really important, and someone should focus on it. I will focus on it. So I'm still like basically working with this since nowadays.
Amazing. It's a life purpose, right? It's a big thing because if you create proper tests and if you care about that, you have like less stress. Like it's gonna be so much easier life as a software developer because you won't have complaints from your customer. You're gonna develop high quality software. Your life is gonna be much easier. So
Yeah,
definitely a must-have mindset for every software developer, every Java developer.
for sure.
Amazing. Elias, thank you so much for your time. Thanks so much for the powerful insights you gave to the Java Challengers audience. And hopefully I'll see you around in a conference around the world, or maybe if I go to the Netherlands. So yeah, thank you so much, Elias, for your participation here in the Java Rockstar Career series.
Thank you, Rafael. Thank you for inviting me. I really enjoyed our talk. Yeah.
Very good. Cheers. Thank you so much.